house hacking. It's a great strategy in which you buy more house than you need and rent out the bedrooms, or buy a multifamily property like a duplex or a fourplex and live in one unit while renting out the others. Whether you're a new real estate investor or a savvy home buyer, house hacking can lower your cost of living, supercharge your equity growth, and depending on where you buy, even produce positive cash flow. But how do you analyze a house hack deal? It's part home, part investment, and none of the online calculators I've seen account for that. Well, today I'm going to teach you how to analyze a house hack deal and give you free unlimited access to my house hack calculator, an easy to use spreadsheet that I built myself. So stay tuned for that link. I'm John Schwartz, and this is Investment Property Nerd. So you're on board with house hacking, but you're having a terrible time figuring out how to properly analyze deals. I feel ya. The online calculators, like the one at BiggerPockets, don't have options for living in one of the bedrooms or units, and most practical advice I've heard doesn't make much sense. For example, in his otherwise very good book, The House Hacking Strategy, Craig Curlop creates a metric he calls net worth return on investment. He takes all of the financial advantages of house hacking, from the reduced living expense to appreciation to principal paydown, and divides all of that by the initial investment in the property. Sounds fine, except that the examples he writes about range from 85% to 1,205% to an infinite net worth return on investment. Well, if the range is that massive, what's the point of the metric? An investor friend of mine likes to think about his house hack as though he were paying rent on his unit. He likes to run the numbers with the imaginary rent and see that the property cash flows. That's fine for reassurance's sake, but it's not the reality of the situation. He's not collecting rent from himself, and the property isn't cash flowing. So this can't be the best analysis either, I think. So without further ado, here's how I analyze house hack deals. I'm going to share my philosophy, and then we'll hop right into using my house hack calculator to see this philosophy in practice. All right, a house hack is two things in one. It's your home, and it's an investment. So I think you need to analyze the property in two ways: as your home while you live there, and then separately as an investment when you move out. Let's quickly discuss these two components, and then we'll dive into using the spreadsheet. While you're living in your house hack property, it's your housing, so you should be comparing the financials against your other housing options. In some markets, particularly in the Midwest, you can buy a house and rent out the other bedrooms, and the rent you collect from your roommates will more than pay for the house. You'll have positive cash flow. In more expensive markets, like Los Angeles, where I house hack, the cost of real estate is so high that it's really difficult, if not impossible, to cash flow while you're living in the house hack. Does this mean it's a mistake to house hack in Los Angeles because you won't cash flow like you might in the Midwest? Absolutely not, because Los Angeles also has extremely expensive rent. According to Zumper.com, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Hollywood right now is $2,400. Let's say you bought a duplex of one-bedroom units in or near Hollywood, and your monthly cost after collecting rent and paying the expenses and mortgage was $1,400. Well, you're not generating cash flow, but you're saving $1,000 per month on your living expenses. That's $1,000 more in your bank account every month. By contrast, let's say you're in Indianapolis, and you buy a house and rent the extra bedrooms and cash flow $300 per month. Score! But what does it cost you to rent a bedroom in Indianapolis? What are you comparing the house hack against? Looking at Craigslist Indianapolis, I'm seeing a lot of bedrooms listed at $500 and under. So going from paying $500 per month to earning $300 per month is great. It's a difference in your favor of $800 per month. But let's not forget that our Los Angeles example had a difference in your favor of $1,000 per month. One cash flows and the other doesn't, but now you see that what really matters is the difference between your house hack financial situation and the situation you'd be in otherwise. It's the difference between the two that measures the value of the house hack while it's your home. So that's analysis number one, and I'll explain exactly how to do it, how to tally up expenses, how to factor in principal paydown when we dig into using the house hack calculator in just a moment. Analysis number two is to determine how the property will perform as a rental when you move out. Now this is tricky because you might not know when you're going to move out. You're obviously not moving out immediately, so you can't use the current rents and expenses to judge the property's performance. You have to project forward a year or two or three and model out what income and expenses will look like then. And that can be tricky. Plus, what if you want to use the property's performance to help you determine when you move out? For example, you might say, When this property will cash flow $1,000 per month without my living here, then I'll move out. How do you figure out when that point will come? And how do you figure out how different financing options might affect that? To answer all of these questions, a savvy investor or homebuyer needs a model for what's going to happen in the years to come. Using the best information available, you can get a sense of where rents and expenses will be in a few years. And using a smart spreadsheet, you can play with those variables to figure out the scenario that works best for your goals. And have I got a smart spreadsheet for you? I've been building the Investment Property Nerds House Hack Calculator since 2019, and I think it is the best, if not the only, tool out there for appropriately analyzing house hack deals. And right now, you can have free and unlimited access to the Investment Property Nerds House Hack Calculator by going to this URL, which is also in the description below. So let's dive into the spreadsheet and see it in action, right after you hit that like and subscribe button. Done? Okay, we're going to analyze an actual Los Angeles listing together and see how the spreadsheet helps you analyze your house hack as a home and then as an investment. Here we go. All right, so this is what you'll see when you first open up the House Hack Calculator. There's a couple links here to my website. You can email me from here, check out my YouTube channel, my Instagram, and down here, this will be a clickable link to get back to this video if you ever get confused while working on the spreadsheet. So next we go to the Summary tab. Summary tab is where you'll enter information and get feedback about the property. The important thing to understand about the Summary tab is that the blue cells are for entering and manipulating data, and then everything else auto-populates. So to fill out this tab, we are going to use an actual listing. 1811 South Highland Avenue, which is a duplex in Los Angeles. And I want to show you why I really like this listing. For starters, we're going to go to this map. Here's the listing. I'm going to zoom out to show you greater Los Angeles. So this is like central Los Angeles right here. And historically, over the past 50, 60 years, as this area has become too expensive, people have moved up here to the valley and haven't really paid much attention to down here, which is South Los Angeles. However, as the valley has become very expensive, now people have started moving south. So this area down here, within like a half mile of the 10 freeway, has been getting slowly and slowly better and better and better over the past 10 years. So this property is in a great location as far as I'm concerned. Now, if we look inside the property, and this is a duplex with a 3-2 and a 2-1, the condition is good, but in need of some upgrades. And that's the kind of property that interests me a lot. For example, this kitchen. You need to change this light fixture, obviously. These cabinets could just be painted, new countertop, new kitchen and appliances, and whabamo! So this is a really nice looking building. And another thing I like about it is that back here, the second unit is over a 3-car garage. Now this 3-car garage can totally be converted into an ADU to create another, definitely 1-bedroom, probably not 2-bedroom, but to create another 1-bedroom unit and turn this into a triplex. I really like when there's garages under units because it means utilities are already being run to the garage and the foundation is strong enough. It doesn't have to be reinforced. So this duplex is vacant. And here's a tip, you wouldn't know it from reading the Redfin listing. However, the agent remarks on the actual MLS listing do indicate that this property will be vacant 3 days after close of escrow. So word to the wise, it's important to work with an agent so that you can see those secret remarks, agent-to-agent remarks in the MLS. So let us take this information, here's the address and here's the price, $890,000, and let's go back to the House Hack Calculator. So the address is 1811 Highland Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90019. The next option is type. So this is where we choose what kind of property it is. Single family rental, where we're going to rent by the room. A single family rental with an ADU, where we're going to live in one and rent the other. Or a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. This is a duplex. Now when we choose duplex, a couple boxes down here turn blue. And this is information that we need to fill in. If we choose triplex, we get blue boxes for 3 units. If we choose single family rent by room, we have options for 4 bedrooms. We don't need to fill out all 4 bedrooms, but the option is there. So we'll go to duplex. So the first unit is a 3-2, and because it's a 3-2, I'm going to put a renter in it. The current rents are actually the market rents because it's vacant. So how do we find market rents? Well, I like to use a website called Rentometer. And we can enter in the address into Rentometer. And we can tell Rentometer we're looking for a 3-bed. It's got 1.5 or more bathrooms. And the building type, instead of apartment or condo, it's a house or a duplex. So I like to look at the median rent. This is what I pay attention to. Half the rents in the neighborhood are going to be below this. Half the rents in the neighborhood are going to be above this. So this is the rental number that I use to come up with a ballpark for what market rent is. The other unit is a 2-1. So it's going to rent for $24.93. So let's go back to the house hack calculator. Now, because the unit is vacant, current rents and market rents are going to be the same numbers. So we'll put in $39.50 there, $39.50 there. Unit 2, as we said, is a 2-1. And I'm going to hit this little triangle here. It's going to give me a drop down. This is the unit that I would live in as the owner. And the market rent here is $24.93, $24.93. So if the units weren't vacant and there were tenants in the units and current rents were lower than market rents, this number right here, rental upside, would tell us how much growth we have in rents going from current rents to market rents. As is, because the unit's vacant, the rental upside is 0 because we can charge market rents. So now we come down to the purchase information. The purchase price for this property is $890,000. Let's say we're going to do a 10% down payment. The calculator tells us what the down payment will be and what the loan amount will be. And for an interest rate, we're going to put in 3 1/8, which is about what you would get right now with an owner-occupied multifamily property. So we're going to look at a couple of upfront costs and determine our cash to close. This is how much money we need to make the purchase. Now, some mortgage insurance, especially on an FHA loan, requires an upfront mortgage insurance cost. Also, sometimes you can buy the mortgage insurance upfront instead of paying it monthly. The point is, talk to a lender about your specific mortgage situation. In this situation, we wouldn't have any upfront mortgage, so we're going to put that at 0. Closing costs tend to be 2% of the price of the property. And now, renovation budget, this is up to your discretion, up to your best estimation. Looking at these units, they need cosmetic repair. It doesn't seem like there's any huge structural damage, though we'll determine that during the inspection period. But I'm going to put in $60,000. That's $30,000 per unit. Now, if you put a number into renovation budget, let's delete this for a second, you'll see up here it says forced equity. Now, this is a box in which you can try to determine how much equity you're creating through your renovation. So once we put in a number here, the forced equity box is activated. So again, the purchase price was $890. Our renovation budget is $60,000. And based on looking at a couple comps in the area, if this duplex was in market condition, I think it would easily be worth $1 million. So if we put in $1 million for our after repair value, that means we have built-in equity of $50,000. Awesome. So now we come down to the next box, our pro forma. And a pro forma is a model for what a month is going to look like at this property. In this example, it's the first month. We're looking at what we should expect in terms of income and expenses the first month of ownership. So for income, we have $39.50. That's the unit we're renting. Now, these expenses are going to be pre-filled with numbers that make sense for Los Angeles because that's my market. But you can change any blue box you want and the calculator works perfectly. So you should adjust these numbers to your market. In Los Angeles, the property tax rate is 1.27%. Insurance will run you 0.15 to 0.3% of the price of the property. At 0.2%, we have insurance at $150 a month, which is a good conservative estimate. Mortgage insurance premium, since we're putting 10% down, is probably going to be around 1%. I'm going to leave our property management fee at 0 because while we're living in this duplex, we're going to manage it ourselves. Utilities, I'm putting in at $60 per unit. That's a pretty good broad estimation for Los Angeles, where landlords pay for tenants' water and the tenants pay for their own electricity and gas. For maintenance and CapEx reserves, I'm putting in 8%. Now, for some viewers in the Midwest and the Southeast, 8% for maintenance and CapEx may seem low, but in Los Angeles, because rents are so high, these percentages tend to be lower. Also, we just spent $60,000 renovating the building, so we don't expect any huge maintenance costs for a couple years down the road. Other expenses can include landscaping, accounting. If you want to factor in potential expenses for a lawyer or whatever else, this is where you put them. I've put in $100 a month for landscaping. And then finally, vacancy, I put at 5%, which is slightly above Los Angeles' long-term average of 4%. So when we subtract our expenses from our income, we end up with cash flow of negative $1,913, which reminds me of something else that I should mention about this pro forma. Positive numbers are money coming to you. Negative numbers, numbers in parentheses, that's money leaving you. And that's kind of a standard bookkeeping practice. So 1913 in parentheses means each month you have to part with $1,913. Now, already we're doing pretty well because you're paying $1,913 for a unit that has a market rent of $2,493. So you're kind of already $500 ahead, but it gets better. This next item here is principal paydown. So as I'm sure you know, a mortgage has two components to the payment. There's the principal paydown and the interest. The interest is like money that goes into the ether, you'll never see it again. The principal paydown is actually lowering the amount of money you owe on the loan. Now, your net worth is what you own minus what you owe. Your assets minus your liabilities. So as your liabilities decrease, your net worth goes up. So this is like money that's coming back to you. You could think of it as money in the bank, though obviously equity in a home is not nearly as secure as money that's literally in the bank. Nonetheless, this is money that comes back your way. So what I like to do is subtract the principal paydown from the cash flow and come up with what I call your rental equivalent. And this is the way I think about it. When you pay rent, that's money that flitters off into the ether. You never see it again. However, when you're house hacking, some of the money comes back to you in the form of principal paydown. So the question is, how much money actually flitters away into the ether and you'll never see it again? And that's this number, $567. So I would say your rental equivalent to house hack this duplex is $567. You cannot live anywhere in Los Angeles for $567 per month. That already makes this house hack a really, really smart decision for anyone who's looking to buy. But it gets even better than that, because I also want us to consider the appreciation on this property. Now, in the next module, we'll look at where we can play with this number and lower the appreciation or higher the appreciation depending on how conservative we want to be. Right now, appreciation for this property is set to 4%, which is well below the long-term average annual appreciation rate in Los Angeles, which I forget it's 6.3 or 6.7, but it's north of 6%. So I'm conservatively estimating that over the long term, this property will appreciate 4% per year. And when we factor in that, we're looking at $3,200 of appreciation per month. Now, obviously, appreciation is not linear. You don't get the same amount every month. It doesn't work that way. You don't get any of it until you sell or refinance the property. But if you look at a long-term hold, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you look at the average appreciation you should expect, and you actually break that down by month, you can use those numbers and you can have a sense of how your financial picture, your financial foundation is changing. So when we subtract the appreciation from the rental equivalent, we get what I call your net worth gain. This is how much your net worth grows each month. And as you can see, this number is very positive, $2,700. So just to recap, cash flow is how much money you're actually going to write a check for each month. And so you have to make sure that you can afford this. Your rent equivalent is the amount of money that's actually floating off into the ether. If you're comparing owning a duplex with renting, this is the number you should focus on. And finally, at the bottom is your net worth gain. This is the amount of money that your net worth is growing each month that you're living in this duplex. All right, let's get down to the final box, projections. Now, this is where we look ahead to the future to see how this property is going to perform as an investment. There's a couple of variables that we have to enter in order to get our results, which are this chart down here. So let's go over these inputs first. Question number one, how many years do you intend to live here? Now you can change this number and it'll change the chart below. We'll see that, we'll see that in a second. Right now as a default, I have 4 years. Property management fee after you move out. If you don't intend to have property management after you move out, if you intend to self-manage after you move out, make this 0. However, if you don't want to property manage after you move out, put in the property management fee that's typical for your market. In Los Angeles, that's 6%. Now we have the rent appreciation number. This is how much rent grows every year. In most Midwest markets, it might be 2 or 3%. In Los Angeles, over the past decade, it's been 5% and above. So for our Los Angeles listing, we're putting in 5%. Next is price appreciation. So this is what affects the appreciation numbers on the value of the property. Like I said, the long-term average in Los Angeles is north of 6%. So I'm going to put in 4%. Again, in a Midwest market, you might want to put in 2%, 1%. If you want, you can put in 0% so that appreciation isn't baked into this calculation whatsoever. Next, you need to put in a projection for the Consumer Price Index. The Consumer Price Index is a measurement of how much goods cost. It's akin to inflation, and now it's right around 2.5%. So that's the number we're going to use. And then lastly, your tax growth. In Los Angeles, tax rates are limited in growth to 2% per year. In other markets, if your property tax is reassessed frequently, your tax growth rate is going to be pretty equivalent to your price appreciation rate. So if you have a price appreciation rate of 2% and your property tax is reassessed every year or every other year, maybe even every 5 years, your property tax is going to go up pretty much in lockstep with the property value. So for Los Angeles, the tax growth rate is held down at 2%. For other markets, the tax growth rate should be close to or exactly the price appreciation rate. And then finally, I have a special border around these two boxes because these two boxes apply only to rent-controlled markets, of which Los Angeles is one. If you're in a rent-controlled market, you need to put in your allowed rent increases. In Los Angeles, historically for the past couple of years, it's been 3% or 4%, so I'm going to be conservative and put in 3%. If your market does not have rent control, allowed rent increases should be equal to the rent appreciation number. For example, in this case, 5%. That way, the rent control calculation is not going to limit your rent at all. I'm going to set this back to 3% now, and then turnover frequency. This is how often tenants move out. In Los Angeles, the average length of tenancy across all apartments is 7 years, so I've been a little more conservative and put in 10 years. If your market doesn't have rent control, and you set allowed rent increases to the same number as rent appreciation, then it doesn't matter what you put into this turnover frequency blank. The spreadsheet's not going to pay attention to this cell anyway. So with these inputs in place, let's first take a look at these two pieces of feedback. The first is move out and cash flow after 2 years and 0 months. So what this means is, with the financial picture we painted, this property will cash flow when we move out after 2 years. If we move out before 2 years, the property won't yet cash flow. So you kind of have to live in the property for 2 years to not incur any additional expenses. And then secondly, refinance out of PMI after, and in this case, the answer is immediately. Now this module will show up if you put down less than 20%. The calculator will tell you when you've reached 20% equity in the property, and that's the point at which you can either remove PMI on a conventional loan or refinance out of PMI on an FHA loan. And then we have the average monthly gains graph. And this is my favorite part of the calculator. This tells us how much money we will be making when we live in the house and when we move out. So in this example, we've decided to live in the property for 4 years. And here are the first 4 years right here. As you can see, the average monthly cost per month ranges from $1,913 to $1,670 over these first 4 years. However, the equity gains over these first 4 years range from $4,700 to $5,200 per month. So yeah, it costs us money to live in this property while we're here, but it's less than rent and we're growing this incredible equity. And then once we move out, this property will be cash flowing $560 per month and growing in equity $5,400 per month, and on through the years. Now we can play with this and see how the numbers look. For example, the calculator tells us that we can move out and cash flow after 2 years. Let's take a look at that. So if we move out after 2 years, in year 3 we'll cash flow $169 per month. And our equity gain will be $5,000 per month, which is pretty awesome. Let's say we are impatient and want to move out after 1 year. Well, year 2, this property will cost us $15 per month, while giving us equity growth of $4,875 per month. So honestly, with this property, I don't think you need to worry about moving out before 2 years are up. All right, I'm going to set this back to 2, and let's play around with some financing scenarios. Let's say, because we can refinance out of PMI immediately, let's say we decide we want to put down less money. Let's say we want to put down 5%. That's going to bring our mortgage insurance premium up to probably about 1.5%. So let's see how this affects everything. Well, the cash flow comes up to $24.93, which is really ironic because that's actually the market rent for the unit. Wow, and I did not plan this in advance. The principal pay down is $1,420, so your rent equivalent is $1,000, which is still, a great price to pay for a 2-1 in this neighborhood. And then your net worth gain is $2,200 per month. All right, so now, because we've put down much less of a down payment, this property won't cash flow until we've lived in it for 5 years. So that's a longer commitment. However, we can refinance out of PMI after 11 months. Now, this calculator isn't smart enough to also model out what a post-refinance financial situation looks like. So you might have to do some scribbling on a sheet of paper to try to figure that out. But what this tells us, which is good to know, is that after living here for a year, we'll have enough equity in the property that we can go back to the bank and negotiate a new loan without PMI. And that's probably going to create a lot more cash flow, perhaps still negative while we live there, but perhaps positive even after the first year. So if we do decide to live here for 2 years, then our costs will be $2,493 and $2,414 on average per month. And then when we move out, the building will still cost us $400 per month, which is, for me, too much. So let's say we stay for 5 years. Well, then we can see how the cost of living here decreases over time from almost $2,500 per month to $2,100 per month. And our first year after moving out, we'll cash flow $189 per month, and our equity growth will be $5,700 per month. Obviously, if you have the capital for it, you could also see what it looks like to put 20% down and pay no PMI. In this situation, the cash flow is negative $864. That means it's only costing us $864 per month out of pocket to live here. And with the principal pay down, our rent equivalent is positive. Positive. I love that. And your net worth gain is $3,600 per month. You can move out in cash flow anytime you want because you're starting at such a high equity position and your mortgage payment's so low, and there's no need to refinance out of PMI. So in this scenario, let's say we move out of here after 1 year. Well, the year we're living there, the property will cost an average of $864 per month, but will be contributing to our net worth an average of $4,500 per month. And then as soon as we move out, the property will cash flow over $1,000 per month and be building $4,700 per month of equity. So this is a scenario that looks really good to me. If you have the capital to put a 20% down payment on this property, I think it's a good idea. But as you can see from the graph, we could look at different situations with a 5% down payment, a 10% down payment, a 20% down payment. And you can go even further to say, well, what if I don't want to pay property management? I want to pay it myself. Or, and this is one I like, let's assume there's no price appreciation. Boom. So right now our appreciation is at 0, and we can see the appreciation gains that are now in this chart are principal pay down only. So the first year we live there, we'd be paying $864 out of pocket, but $1,200 would be going to principal pay down every month. There's no mortgage situation with a single family home in which your principal pay down is greater than your mortgage payment. And that's one of the things that I love about house hacking. And then as we move out, the cash flow is over $1,000, and the principal pay down essentially doubles that figure. The principal pay down is another $1,200. All right, so that's an overview of how to use this tab. Now, with these numbers in place, we can go to the annual tab, and this just looks at everything year by year. So for each year, you can look at whether this property is your primary residence or just an investment property, your total income for the year. These are your expense totals for the year. Here's your total cash flow for the year. And then here's the average monthly cash flow. Under this category of net worth boosters, we have our principal pay down for the year, our appreciation for the year, and then our net worth gain for the whole year, which is appreciation and principal pay down minus the out-of-pocket cash flow. Or in year 2, the net worth gain is the appreciation and principal pay down plus that positive cash flow. And then finally down here in the equity section, we have the equity gain for the year and the average monthly equity gain. And then EOY stands for end of year. So this is the end of year equity we have in the property. Here's our equity percent at the end of the year. Here's our loan balance at the end of the year. And here's our property value at the end of the year. And you can look at each of 30 years of ownership and see how these numbers play out. What's interesting is if you put down less than 20%, let's say we put down 5%, which would give us 1.5% mortgage insurance. I just want the calculator to remain consistent. If we go into annual, we can come down to this equity percentage row and see, Oh, look at that. We're at 20% equity already in year 1 because of the value we added to the property. But what if we want to see in what month exactly we reach that 20% equity? Obviously it says here 11 months, but what I'm getting to is there's a tab down here called monthly. And monthly gives us the same information as the annual tab, but on a month-by-month basis. So this row here tells us what month we're in, and it goes all the way up to month 360. Oops. And for each month, we have the income per unit, the effective gross rent, our expenses, the cash flow, our net worth boosters of principal paydown, appreciation, and the total net worth gain. And then in this equity section, we have the end of month loan balance, the accrued equity in dollars, the accrued equity as a percent of the value of the property, and the property value. So if we scroll down here, we'll see that we hit that 20% equity mark in month 11. And you can look at the property's performance month by month by month on this tab. What you'll also see here is where the calculator puts new tenants into units based on the turnover frequency number that we put in the summary. Now, I'll mention here, if you're a client of mine, you can make a PDF of this page, send it to me so we can look at the numbers together. I love doing that. So now that you understand basically how this tab works, go out, find some listings, punch the numbers in, and see what situation works best for your goals. Have fun and good luck. So that's the Investment Property Nerds House Hack Calculator. Once again, your free and unlimited access is at this URL, which is also linked to in the description below. If you have any questions about using the spreadsheet, please put them in the comments below or email me from the link in the spreadsheet. And if you're going to grab your copy of the House Hack Calculator, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's your way of helping me help more investors. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Investment Property Nerd.